My wife thought she was being funny. She wasn't. In the middle of dinner, she leaned back, smirked, and said, "My ex was bigger." She laughed. I didn't. That one careless sentence has echoed in my head ever since, and the way I chose to respond, well, it shocked her more than she ever expected. I never thought my marriage would reach this point. My wife and I had been together for 6 years, married for 4. We weren't perfect, but I believed we had a solid relationship. That night, we were having a quiet dinner at home, candles on the table, wine in our glasses. I thought it would be one of those evenings where we simply enjoyed each other's company. The house was unusually calm. No TV in the background, no phones buzzing with notifications, no distractions, just us. I had made pasta and opened a bottle of red wine we'd been saving. My wife wore a soft yellow dress, the one she liked to wear when she wanted to look nice without trying too hard. Her hair was tied loosely, and the flicker of the candlelight made her skin glow. For a while, everything felt right. We talked about work, about plans for the weekend, about the funny thing our neighbor had done earlier that day. We laughed. We ate. I remember sitting there and thinking, this is good. This is what marriage is supposed to be. Then she said it. It came out of nowhere, wrapped in a laugh, as if she were sharing a harmless joke. She leaned back in her chair, swirled the wine in her glass, smirked, and said, "You know, my ex was bigger." The fork in my hand froze halfway to my mouth. The bite of pasta suddenly felt heavy and tasteless. For a second, I thought maybe I misheard her. Maybe she said something else. "What?" I asked, my voice careful, steady, like I was hoping she'd backtrack immediately. She grinned, tilting her head just a little. "Relax. It's just a joke. You're too serious sometimes." But the way she said it, the little smirk, the twinkle in her eyes didn't feel like a joke. It felt like a jab, sharp and intentional, like she wanted to see how I'd react. I forced a laugh, but it didn't sound natural. My chest was burning. Inside, I was screaming. Why would she say that? Why compare me to him? Why bring him up at all? I tried to brush it off, but her words stuck like a thorn. The smile on her face made it worse. It wasn't just what she said, it was how she looked at me after, as if she'd scored a point. I didn't know what to say. My jaw tightened. My hand gripped the fork so hard my knuckles turned white. In my head, a storm of thoughts clashed and tumbled over each other. Did she mean it? Was it true? Does she still think about him? Does she wish she was with him instead of me? I swallowed hard, pushed the food around my plate, and said nothing. Dinner ended in silence. I cleared the table while she hummed a tune in the kitchen, like nothing had happened. She even kissed me lightly on the cheek, as if the words hadn't just cut me open. But when we went to bed that night, the silence between us was louder than anything. She curled up against me, the way she always did, resting her head on my shoulder. To her, everything was normal. To me, it felt like I was lying next to a stranger. I closed my eyes, but her voice echoed in my head on repeat. My ex was bigger. My ex was bigger. I turned away from her, pulling the blanket up around me. She shifted slightly, noticing, and whispered into the dark, "Don't be mad. It was just a joke. Just a joke." No, it wasn't. Jokes don't leave scars. I lay awake long after she drifted to sleep. The clock ticked past midnight, then 1, then 2. My chest tightened with every minute that passed. In the quiet of the night, I pictured him the man she had compared me to. A faceless shadow, but bigger, stronger, better. Someone who lived in her memory, uninvited, unwanted, but still powerful enough to crawl between us, even now. By the time the sun crept through the curtains, I hadn't slept a minute. She stirred beside me, stretched, and hummed softly like she always did when waking up in a good mood. She kissed me good morning and walked to the kitchen to make coffee, as if the night before had been erased, as if the words hadn't happened. And that was when I realized something terrifying. She thought I would just forget it. She thought I would swallow the hurt and move on, but I couldn't. Because sometimes, silence cuts deeper than shouting. The next morning at breakfast, she was cheerful, humming a little tune as she buttered her toast. She slid a cup of coffee toward me like nothing had happened. "Sleep well?" she asked. I looked at her for a long moment, my mouth dry. I wanted to say, "No, I didn't sleep at all," because you told me your ex was bigger and it's eating me alive. But instead I just muttered, fine, and sipped my coffee. She smiled, satisfied with my answer, and started talking about her plans for the day. As she spoke, her hands moved gracefully, slicing fruit, tapping her nails against the counter. It was so normal, too normal, and that made me angrier. How could she act like everything was fine? Did she really not understand what she'd done? Or worse, did she understand perfectly and simply not care? At work, I couldn't focus. The words replayed over and over in my head. Bigger. My ex was bigger. Every time I tried to concentrate on my screen, my mind pulled me back to that moment. The smirk, the wine glass in her hand, the way she tilted her head. I texted my friend Mark during lunch. What would you do if your wife compared you to her ex? He replied almost instantly. That's disrespect. Plain and simple. Don't let it slide. She'll keep doing it. The word disrespect hit me hard. That's exactly what it was. Not a joke. Not harmless. Disrespect. I realized then that if I stayed silent, I was giving her permission. She would think it was okay to humiliate me, to use her ex as a weapon anytime she wanted to feel powerful. And slowly, piece by piece, my dignity would vanish. No, I couldn't let that happen. That weekend, she suggested inviting friends over for dinner. Normally, I would have said no. I liked keeping my private life private. But this time, something inside me shifted. I said yes, because suddenly, I had an idea. If she wanted to embarrass me with her so-called joke, then I would show her exactly how it felt. The night of the dinner, I went all out. I set the table with candles and folded napkins. I bought her favorite wine. I even helped her choose a dress, complimenting her until she blushed. She thought I was just being sweet. She had no idea I was setting the stage. Our friends arrived, 2 couples we'd known for years. We laughed, ate, and everything seemed normal. My wife was glowing, pouring wine, telling stories, acting like the perfect hostess. She looked at me across the table and winked, and for a second, I almost forgot the plan. Almost. But then I remembered the way she smirked when she compared me to him, and my resolve hardened. When everyone was relaxed, I leaned back casually in my chair and said, "You know, my wife has a great sense of humor. She made a joke the other night that really stuck with me." I saw her freeze for just a moment, her fork halfway to her mouth. "Oh? What joke?" she asked quickly, her smile faltering. I let the silence hang in the air before I said it. "She told me her ex was bigger. Can you believe that?" The room went silent. Forks clinked against plates, and then nothing. One of our friends glanced at his wife, unsure if he should laugh or pretend he hadn't heard. My wife's face turned crimson. She forced a nervous laugh. "That was private." "Private?" I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "You didn't say it in private. You said it to me. So I thought maybe everyone else would enjoy the joke too." The tension at the table was suffocating. Our friends shifted uncomfortably, trying to change the subject, but the damage was already done. My wife's eyes flashed with anger, but she kept quiet until everyone left early, making excuses about the late hour. As soon as the door shut behind them, she spun on me. "How dare you humiliate me like that?" I stared at her, my hands trembling but my voice steady. "Humiliate you? You humiliated me first. Do you know what it's like to hear your wife compare you to another man? To sit there while you smile and tell me your ex was bigger?" Her lip quivered. "It was a joke. I didn't mean it. You meant it enough to smirk afterward." I shot back. She stormed into the bedroom and slammed the door. I stayed in the living room, staring at the empty wine glasses on the table, my chest heaving. For the first time in our marriage, I felt like I had taken back a piece of my dignity. But I also knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The days after that, dinner felt like walking through a frozen house. My wife barely spoke to me. When she did, her words were clipped, practical, stripped of warmth. "The laundry's done. Dinner's on the stove. We need more milk." At night, she rolled to the far side of the bed, her back to me, the space between us like a canyon. I could hear her breathing, steady but tense, as though even in her sleep, she was angry at me. I didn't chase her this time. In the past, whenever we fought, I was always the one to reach across first, to say sorry, even when I wasn't wrong, to smooth things over just to end the silence. But not now. Not after what she said. Not after what she did. Because the truth was, I wasn't just hurt. I was humiliated. I couldn't stop replaying that moment in my head. Her leaning back with that smirk, saying her ex was bigger. And then the way she looked at me when our friends went silent after I repeated it at the table, shock, fury, and maybe a flicker of shame. It was almost satisfying. Almost. But in the quiet of the night, with her back turned to me, I felt something else creep in doubt. Was I making it worse by not speaking? Should I have handled it differently? Or was this the only way to show her that her words had consequences? By the fifth night of silence, I couldn't take it anymore. I walked into the bedroom while she was brushing her hair and said, "We need to talk." She didn't look at me in the mirror. About what? "You know what?" I said flatly. Her hand stilled the mid-brush. She lowered it slowly, set it on the dresser, and finally turned to face me. Her eyes were tired, ringed with shadows. She had been sleeping worse than she let on. "I didn't mean it the way it sounded," she said quietly. "Then how did you mean it?" I asked. Her lips trembled. "I don't know. I was tipsy. I thought it was funny. I didn't think it would hurt you so much. I don't miss him, if that's what you're worried about." The honesty in her tone startled me. For a moment, I almost softened, but the memory of her smirk held me steady. "Then why say it at all?" I pressed. She shrugged helplessly, tears brimming in her eyes. "Sometimes I say stupid things. I don't know why, but I'm sorry." Her voice cracked on the last word. She looked small, vulnerable, nothing like the woman who had smirked at me across the dinner table. I wanted to forgive her. I really did. But part of me still wanted her to feel what I had felt, that sharp sting of being compared, of being diminished. Over the next few days, we began to talk again, though cautiously. She was gentler with her words, almost overly careful. She'd ask how my day was, kiss me goodbye before work, text me small updates like, "Just got home safe," or "Dinner's almost ready." It was her way of extending an olive branch. But in the back of my mind, a temptation grew. A dark little voice whispered, "Two can play at this game." I caught myself imagining scenarios. What if I mentioned an old flame of mine? What if I casually let slip that she had been prettier, or funnier, or better in some way? Just a hint. Just enough to make my wife feel that same sting. The thought lingered longer than I wanted to admit. I even drafted lines in my head, the way I could deliver them so they'd sound casual. But each time, I stopped myself, because I knew where that road led. That's how marriage is wrought, not in one big explosion, but in tiny, careless cuts. One jab here, one comparison there, until love bleeds out slowly, unnoticed, until it's gone. No, I wasn't going to play her game. I wasn't going to stoop to her level, but I also wasn't going to forget. The following weekend, we went out with friends again. It was our first time since the infamous dinner, and I could feel the tension radiating off her before we even left the house. She kept adjusting her dress, checking her hair, biting her lip. When we got to the restaurant, I decided to test her. Halfway through the meal, while everyone was laughing about something silly, I leaned in and said casually, "You know, some people joke too much in relationships. Sometimes jokes cross a line, right, honey?" Her fork clinged against her plate. She looked at me, eyes wide for just a second, then forced a quick smile. "Yes, definitely. Some jokes go too far." Our friends laughed, not realizing the weight behind her words. But under the table, I felt her hand slide over mine. She squeezed it tightly, almost desperately. It wasn't for them. It was for me. Her silent way of saying, "I get it. I'm sorry. I won't do it again." For a while after that, things were better. She was softer, more attentive. She listened when I spoke. She laughed at my jokes. She touched my arm when I walked past. It was almost as if she was trying to rebuild something she knew she had broken. And yet, the crack was still there, invisible to anyone else, but I felt it every day. That single sentence had changed something between us. I couldn't look at her the same way without remembering the smirk, the wine glass in her hand, and the words that had cut me to the core. For weeks, life in our house felt different. Not broken, but fragile. Like a vase glued back together, still useful, still standing, but never quite the same. She tried harder after that second dinner. I could see it in small ways. She texted me more often during the day. Thinking of you. Don't forget lunch. Love you. She lingered longer when hugging me. She was quicker to laugh at my jokes, quicker to lean on me when she was tired. It wasn't forced, but it wasn't effortless either. She was making an effort to show me that she cared, that she hadn't meant to break me down that night. And yet, no matter how much she did, there was a shadow. That sentence, "my ex was bigger," echoed every time I saw her smile. I would be brushing my teeth, watching her in the mirror, and suddenly I'd hear it in my head again. One evening, I came home late from work. She was sitting at the dining table, candles lit again, a small box in front of her. Her expression was soft, almost nervous. "What's this?" I asked, dropping my keys. She pushed the box toward me. "Just open it." Inside was a folded piece of paper, a note. I unfolded it slowly, my heart thudding. In her handwriting, it said, "You are enough, more than enough. I'm sorry I made you doubt that." For a long moment, I couldn't speak. I just stared at the words. When I looked up, she was watching me with tears in her eyes. I don't know why I said what I said. Maybe I was trying to be funny. Maybe I was trying to cover my own insecurity. But I need you to know I don't compare you to anyone. I don't think about him. You're my husband. You're the one I chose. Her voice shook, but her eyes were steady. For the first time since that night, I felt sincerity from her. Not just regret for being caught. Not just embarrassment, but real sorrow for hurting me. I sat down across from her, still holding the note. "Do you know what it felt like? To hear you say that?" She lowered her head. "Yes, I know now. I should have never said it. I can't take it back, but I can prove every day that I don't see you that way." Silence hung between us, but it wasn't the cold silence from before. It was heavy, but honest. I reached across the table and took her hand. "I don't need you to worship me," I said slowly. "I just need your respect. That's all I ask. Respect me the way I respect you." Her shoulders shook as she nodded quickly. "I promise. No more stupid jokes. Not like that. Ever again." For a while, things were lighter. Not perfect, but lighter. We went on walks together, tried a new restaurant, watched the movies on the couch. She laughed more, I talked more, and little by little, the shadow grew smaller. But scars don't vanish overnight. One evening, weeks later, she brought it up again, not to make another joke, but to acknowledge it. We were lying in bed, the lamp casting a soft glow across the room. She turned to me, her voice quiet. "I still can't believe I said that to you. I don't know what I was thinking." I chuckled lightly, though the memory still stung. "I don't either." She looked at me with guilt written all over her face. "You'll never let me live it down, will you?" I smiled faintly. "No, because that's how you learn. You said your ex was bigger, but I showed you that, sometimes, the biggest thing in a marriage isn't size, it's respect." She groaned, burying her face in the pillow, but I saw the corner of her mouth curve upward. That night, as I lay awake, listening to her breathing beside me, I realized something important. This story, our story, wasn't really about size, or even about her ex. It was about words. Words can build. Words can destroy. One careless joke can crack the foundation of trust that takes years to build. One thoughtless sentence can plant doubt that grows like weeds in the cracks of love. But the right words, words of apology, words of respect, words of reassurance can mend, if both people are willing to fight for it. My wife and I are still together, maybe stronger than before. Not because we never hurt each other, but because we faced the hurt head-on. Looking back, I'll never forget the sting of that night. The humiliation, the silence, the doubt. But I'll also never forget what it taught me. Respect matters more than romance. Dignity matters more than jokes. And love, without respect, will never last. So if you take one thing from this story, let it be this. Never joke about your partner's worth. Some things aren't funny. Some things cut too deep. And sometimes, the scars they leave never fully fade.
Wow, what a journey. From a simple dinner filled with laughter to a single careless joke that cut like a knife, and finally, the slow road to rebuilding trust. This story reminds us that love without respect will always leave scars. But let me ask you, if you were in his shoes, Would you have stayed and tried to heal, or walked away to protect your dignity? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget, subscribe for more true stories of love, betrayal, and the lessons they leave behind. Until next time, remember, lies may break your heart, but regrets will always teach you why respect matters most. Because love may forgive, but it never forgets the moment respect is lost.